the power of the dark side. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. I am your father.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This is the 1995 Millennium Falcon. You know, I was never blessed enough to get the original one. I really wish I had. But this is the box for it. And up behind me, that is my Millennium Falcon hanging from the ceiling. And as you can see on the back, inside it has an open-up compartment where they play that cool 3D game. It also has a cockpit where you can fit two different figures. It has a fold-down ramp. It has a handle so you can hold on to it. It has two flip-down landing gears in back. But this is a really well-made. It's a really great ship. And as the box says, it has 4 real movie sounds. This Millennium Falcon is actually really cool. I was recovering from neck surgeries at the time, and I believe that this is one of my big gifts. Right? I'm walking around in a Halo brace, and I'm feeling like crap. And my mom and my wife, or my wife, one of the two or both, brought me the Millennium Falcon. Of course, I was, 20, 21 years old at the time, and it blew my mind. Because I never got to own the original one. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it was a cost thing, but I think it was more a timing thing. Because again, I was really young when the original Star Wars came out. I started collecting around 80, where I was able to pick up a lot of actually 77 figures and stuff. So I have those, but I was only like 6 years old in 1980. So that prime age, moving up to 9 years old when Return of the Jedi comes out. Along the way, I got a lot of great Star Wars ships. Another one we're going to be talking about in just a little bit in this very episode, my Imperial Shuttle. The Imperial Shuttle is just really cool, and I can't wait to show it to you guys. But for now, just take a look at the Millennium Falcon. It's a really cool toy, and I'm really blessed to have it. And it's been hanging from my ceiling. It took some real engineering prowess. There are 4 fishing lines suspending that one ship from the ceiling you see above my head. So that was, I wanted the right angle, and I wanted to, I worked really hard to get it right. And it took some time, but I got it right, I think. So it's been up there for years, and that's because I can't cut it down. There's no chance I'm going to cut that down unless we're moving out of this place. This is autographed by George Lucas. It's in the silver. And then Jake Lloyd, of course, who played Anakin Skywalker. So this is circa back around Phantom Menace, signed by George Lucas and Jake Lloyd. This is the certificate of authenticity. Say that 5 times fast. So yeah, George Lucas, Jake Lloyd, this is really precious to me. And really cool to have. And someday, when I get the proper man cave, this is going on the wall. Probably next to my signed Star Wars poster, which I haven't mentioned yet. This poster to my right is signed by Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher. Luke, Leia, and Han. That's my most prized possession, of course, right there. Next to my Rush painting. One of the greatest presents I ever got for Christmas was the Imperial Shuttle. It's Christmas. And there was a giant box on the floor. And of course, my imagination's going crazy. And it's sitting by the tree. And I see my name on a little tag. Right? I get up really early that morning, 5, 6 o'clock. And it's still dark, but the Christmas tree is lit. And those tiny little Christmas bulbs are casting their little beams of light onto this giant box that says, Eric. Imagine my surprise when I open up and I lean back and I take it in and I'm like, I have an Imperial Shuttle. It blew my mind. Because of all of the vintage Star Wars ships, this is the one of which I'm most proud. Because it is massive and it is ridiculous. And the design, straight out of the movie. And of course, the iconic scene where the Imperial Shuttle, this very thing, flies in to one of the landing bays under the Death Star. And all the smoke and steam are coming out, and the ramp comes down, and out walks Vader, later on, the Emperor arrived kind of the same way. All these troops and guards are lined up, and Vader's walking along, and he's having that conversation with one of his lieutenants or generals or admirals, and I think it was an admiral, and he's like, he's telling him the Emperor's coming, right? He's like, the Emperor's coming here? Yes. And he's like, well, we should double our efforts. Well, I hope so, for your sake, Commander. The Emperor will be very displeased at the lack of your, so he's talking and giving a dressing down. So great, right? We should double our efforts. I hope so, Commander. But they came right off the Imperial Shuttle, and I owned that toy. And then later that morning, I'm flying it around the living room, because the Imperial Shuttle, underneath, okay, because, it's basically this kind of big, like a Mitsubishi, or like this triangle made out of 3 points, and it has a handle underneath, and it has a trigger, and that trigger allows you to retract and open the wings. And of course, my ship is hanging from the ceiling, another engineering feat, just like Millennium Falcon, where I used at least 4 fishing lines bolted to the ceiling, wrapped around strategic parts of the shuttle. That way it can hang in my office where it's been for years. Underneath, of course, it has the handle. It has 2 flip down landing gears of the same length as the handle. So when the wings come up like this to meet the big middle wing like that, it can actually land on those 3 points. It has a cockpit for 2 figures, which can open up and you can put the figures inside. You can open it up and you can see part of a cargo crew area, if you will. In back, it held batteries where it could make sounds. It has laser cannons, but this toy is just super cool. I'm still impressed that I have it. Not in an egotistical way, I just can't believe I have the Imperial Shuttle. Because it's one thing to have an X-Wing, it's one thing to have a Skywalker, or I have a B-Wing, and I have all these vintage ships. But there's something about the Imperial Shuttle. In the Star Wars movies, there are so many iconic spaceships. Everything from the X-Wing to the TIE Fighter to the Millennium Falcon, and of course the Imperial Shuttle. And so many really cool, of course the B-Wing and the Y-Wing and the A-Wing. All these different wings. But one of the very most iconic is the X-Wing. And this right here is the 1978 original X-Wing fighter. Of course, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, came out in 77. You can see it has a little bit of a battle damage here. And underneath, it has a pull-out stand so the X-Wing can actually land, right? Or in the case of Luke on Dagobah, he crash landed that sucker. But then we can take the airfoils, I think that's what they're called, the wings, and now we can go in X-Wing mode. Just press down on the little R2 on top. It's actually a trigger, which opens up the wings. Here's the back. And I believe that 2 AA batteries, or possibly AAAs, go in this compartment here. You lift this up with a little screwdriver. See the little kind of crescent shape? That opens up, and you can put batteries inside, and it makes X-Wing sounds. Of course, to keep my ship okay, as it sits there for years, I took the batteries out. So then, when you then need to go, say, to light speed or go fast again, you simply take this little switch. There we go. And then they go back to regular. So press down on R2, X-Wing, and then hit this again, they retract. I mean, this sucker is nearly 50 years old, and it still works great. Kenner made some amazing toys. Well crafted. Of course, we can lift this up and put the different Lukes inside. From each movie, he flies an X-Wing with his different outfits and stuff. So you can put your different figures in there. But yeah, that's the cockpit. Just a simple cockpit with a seat. Okay, and also one more cool thing. I told you there's batteries. This is the button that triggers the sound effects, but when the sounds do trigger, this lights up as well. This is the little red diode at the top. Okay, this is what it looks underneath. You can see, yeah, it's got a little bit of damage, but hey, it's 50 years old, and again, I used to play with this. All right, this is one of my toys that an excited little kid used to play with, and my goodness, considering that, it's in pretty good condition. So guys, the X-Wing, so iconic to Star Wars, so very cool, and man, Now, what I want to do is, in another episode, I'm going to show you the 1995 version, which is hanging right behind me right here. And I'm going to show you the update to that. It's actually bigger, really cool. But yeah, of course, this is the original 1978 model. Until the Star Wars prequels came out, Slave One was always Boba Fett's ship. And then all of a sudden, we learn that there's a Jango Fett, Boba Fett's dad. And of course, Slave One belonged to him before that. So, Boba Fett got it from his dad. So the point is, I have two versions of the ship. And they're radically different. Both in when they came out and in design. The first one is this. This is a 1996, I believe, if not 98. It's right in that, it's mid to late 90s. This is Slave One, and as you can see inside the cockpit, I've got Boba Fett in there. And as you turn it, the wings actually adjust with the ship. I am missing this piece. It's somewhere in one of my boxes with all my accessories and stuff. So forgive that. And then also it has a removable compartment right here where you can actually take this off, this whole side. You do that because this Slave One was designed, it has a little lever right here, right? And it actually takes Boba Fett, you can see him through there, and it rotates him down, because of course Slave One flies like this, but then it lands like this. If you've seen The Mandalorian, they very much expanded upon this idea and actually added an entire inside for a crew. And you got to know much more of the inner workings of Slave One, which I kind of found cool. I mean, the mystery was gone, but I was okay with that. So once you rotate that down, you can then remove your figure. You can kind of say, I have him buckled in there. And then when he takes off, you can take this little lever again, rotate it up, and he's back in flying position. So that's the Slave One. Again, came out in the late 90s. I do not care for this design. It feels very flimsy, for lack of a better word. There, see what I mean? I can't even get the stupid side panel on. However, in stark contrast, to go with Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, right around the prequel time, they came out with this model. Okay, with the original colors for Slave One. Right, kind of the blues, right? Kind of. And you can see I have a Jango Fett inside here. This cockpit lifts up. It actually just comes off. Anyway, I'll talk about the weak points in a second here. But it has two seats, if you will. One here. I have the other Jango without a mask behind him. So I have two Jango Fetts in there. And that goes back on. Now this ship, you actually have to turn these manually. They don't exactly turn with the ship. Two design flaws that I don't care for. The completely removable canopy, okay, for the cockpit, and these pieces right here. And I think it was to get in the original boxing, which I have stored somewhere, right, the original box. But these pieces would just come undone all the time. Literally, if you took them off 3 or 4 times, they were done. and meaning like they would not hold place anymore. So earlier today, my son, with his glue gun, with which he makes hundreds of plushes, by the way. He makes toys. My son does. He's very creative. But the point is, he used his glue gun and glued these in for me. So the first time since about 2001, these are nice and sturdy. And if any of you own this, let me know. Drop me a comment. The design difference is radical. This feels like it's 2.5, 3 pounds. This one feels like it's 8 ounces. Just the materials involved, okay? The level of design, the quality of the plastic, it's just, and the paint job. This is just a much better built ship, as a toy. And it's not so much about, again, this doesn't have the this part to come out and everything. That's not there. But of course, that's not something that we saw as much. That's something that Boba Fett utilized. The iconic scene on Cloud City where, he has the floating carbonite Han, and he's loading them up into Slave One, right? That's how he got that stuff in and out. So besides that, it has this missile compartment. There's a button here and back. See this button? You press it, it pops down, and it can launch these missiles right here. In addition, it can actually drop bombs. They come out of this little port right here. Okay, these are little round red balls. See that port right there? And we saw that. In Mandalorian, there's a great scene with Boba Fett, and he has Slave One, and he uses these bombs that explode midair, right? And he takes out several TIE fighters, stuff like that. And of course, we have the traditional laser cannons as well. Both ships have a handle in back, which makes it really easy to hold on to, which is fantastic for a toy. You just grab hold right here, and then you can fly Slave One, as it should be, like that. So again, of the two, and this one had a bunch of stickers that had to be put on. This one is fully painted, okay? It's pre-painted. No stickers that could potentially come off or get worn down. And on the back, you can see that those are actually stickers back here, okay? And this one may have a couple stickers, but this is just a much better build. And it's kind of shocking, right? Late 90s, and just 2 or 3 years later in 01, this Slave One comes out. So again, I'm really cool to have these ships. You can see Boba Fett in here, Jango Fett in here, father and son, Slave One models. Anyway, very cool. I love this ship. It's just unique, and it's weird, and it's very Star Wars. Most of us agree Boba Fett is just a very cool character. Until the prequels, he was completely wrapped in mystery. This guy who'd get the job done, a bounty hunter. The guy who trapped, or at least got Han after he was trapped. But, he got Han, he delivers him to Jabba the Hutt. This is a 12-inch figure of Boba Fett. He has blaster, belt. We have Jedi braids here. Okay, on this arm over here, we have a little piece of torn cloth or tunic. In back his jetpack with a missile, of course allowing him to fly. And I believe, yeah, right here, this will actually launch the missile out. When I press kind of downward on this, it launches the missile out of his backpack. Like that. So that is kind of cool. And as we learned in The Mandalorian, and I believe they showed this in the Star Wars movies, the original ones, this comes down as like a computerized targeting system. That was the cool part about the Mandalorian series, is that it really expanded and did a deep dive into what the Mandalorian culture is, how their equipment functions, all the tech built into it, right? We know that all this is made of Beskar. One of the hardest metals is laser proof, but also we saw in The Mandalorian that there's tech built into this suit. And then that scene on the hillside where we see Boba Fett do all this cool stuff, and he's shooting missiles out of these little things. And this is all built into the suit all along. And we got to see that expanded. But of course we know him mostly from Empire Strikes Back, and then of course he gets killed sort of by accident. He flies into the side of Jabba's sail barge over the Sarlacc pit, and then falls into the Sarlacc pit, and the Sarlacc pit burps afterwards. But yeah, this is just such a cool figure. A 12-inch Boba Fett. But that classic Barbie size, or classic original G.I. Joe size. And then here's his laser blaster. Okay. 12-inch Boba Fett. This is one of my dad's favorite toys. He loves this toy, and I always think about him when I see it, when I used to play with it. This is the original Rancor Monster. Came out in 1983 for the Return of the Jedi. It's got some really cool features in here. Not a feature is this. My dad tried to repair this for me once, long ago, in a galaxy far, far away. But yes, there's a little attachment between the two arms. And this one came apart, so ignore that for now. I'm going to hold it in place and pretend like it's not broken. But on the back, check this out, of the Rancor Monster, there's this little switch. It allows you to... Now, look at that, he's coming at you. Look at that. Rancor's going to get you, man. It's going to get you. Now, no Rancor would be complete without an original Gamorrean Guard. All right, the guys that squealed like pigs, right? And he actually crunched down and ate one of them in the movie. Look at that. Yeah, Rancor. So this is the Gamorrean Guard. And of course, down there in the Rancor pit, along with him was Luke Skywalker in his Jedi outfit. And of course, Luke, when he was picked up by the Rancor Monster, you guys remember it? He grabbed a bone nearby, put it between his jaws like this, put the bone in there, like a big femur bone, and it stopped the monster from crunching down on him, allowing Luke to come down, run across the pit, where he picked up a nearby skull, threw it at the door switch. For some reason, when you destroy door switches in Star Wars, the doors always open or close. But so, yeah, he hits the switch, the big gate comes down and crushes the Rancor. And of course, in a later episode, stay tuned, hit the subscribe button, I have the Rancor Keeper as well. Well, let's just look at him right now. Yeah, but we'll do this guy separately. Yeah, but here's the Rancor Keeper. So yeah, the vintage Rancor Keeper. Very cool toy. It has movable legs, movable arms. The wrists turn as well with his big claw hands. Okay, and look at the detail on the back for that tail that comes down. Very cool toy. Very cool toy. I love this toy. Alright, so this is a Jabba the Hutt playset. It came with 2 figures. Jabba the Hutt, of course, and Salacious Crumb, the guy that sits on the edge right there. And then he has his little thing with which he gets bugs and stuff, and he drinks the juice. Yeah, this is Jabba. And when you turn his head, his tail moves. Okay? When you turn Jabba's head, his tail actually moves. And can you believe, back in the day, this is before CGI, this is before computer-aided, computers to, create things digitally, there were 6 to 7 puppeteers, if you will, inside the giant Jabba that you saw in Return of the Jedi. There were that many people controlling the tail and controlling the eyes and the arms and stuff. There were people actually inside this prosthetic, this giant puppet that was Jabba the Hutt, that of course sits, or lays, upon his throne. Now this is a cool playset because it has a string that comes off here where you can put a ring around Luke's neck, but also these open up, okay, to kind of represent when Luke falls through the floor into the Rancor pit. And then down here below Jabba, you can see that there are cast moldings of lizards and bones and stuff like that, things that fell. And I've always thought that kind of represents the Rancor pit. It may not, but as a kid, that's what I thought. So yes, Jabba sits upon his throne, and then this is Salacious Crumb, or whatever that is. Now, if you ever saw The Mandalorian, they are actually grilling these guys on a spit. You're actually cooking these guys on the streets of one of the alien worlds. But anyway, yeah, this is Jabba the Hutt. It's a really cool playset. And of course, with this, and I'm also going to be showing you Jedi Luke and Leia as Bosch, and I have Lando in his disguise. So yeah, this is a fantastic playset. Okay, if you want to recreate the Jabba scene from Return of the Jedi. We first saw this droid in 1983 in Return of the Jedi. This is AD-8. Very short scene as at least Chewie's walking by down in the dungeons of Jabba's palace. And this guy is branding. Do you remember? Okay? This brand is coming down in the little droid. He's waving his feet and he's screaming. I didn't know they had pain sensors. But what's cool is this is the Power of the Force version, which comes with the branding. You can kind of see the difference here. There we go. Power of the Force 88. There, kind of look from the front. Now, back in 83, I got the playset. This is Jawa's Dungeon playset. You can see it has the whole branding thing here, okay? To put the brand on the feet or on a droid. And he's working the controls down in Jawa's dungeon. Okay, it has a ramp right up here. And then some kind of whatever this is down here. Oh yeah, it even has a peg built in. Here we go. Let's put him on one of the pegs. All right, so he's working. I love the little hole pegs for the feet. They do come in handy sometimes. He's down here branding droids. That way, I assume they know that they're Jabba's property. So yeah, this is just a simple little playset. I never used it much, but it did come in handy once in a while. It's not like I want to repeat that scene over and over again. I mean, what's the point? But yeah, playset, original 88, and then of course, in contrast to the playset, we have the Power of the Force version, and this one came out in '98. Okay, so 1983 and 1998. 88. You can see, oh, there it is right there. It's about the brand defeat of the little droid. Okay. Remember Return of the Jedi. No, let me say, remember the original Return of the Jedi before the special edition, or before they were altered to reflect the new sort of retcon history of the prequels, meaning they took the actor from the prequels who played Anakin and put him in as one of the spirits that Luke sees at the end of Return of the Jedi. I remember the original. I remember the Anakin Skywalker from Return of the Jedi. Luke's father, that he looked straight in the eye before he passed away, but knowing that he did everything to protect his son and to attempt to right the wrongs of the past. That redemption story of Anakin, of Darth Vader. I remember that. What I love is this toy, the Jedi Spirits. And as you can see here, this has the 3 spirits from Return of the Jedi before they added the different Anakin into the mix. This toy came out in 1998. However, I have one more thing to show you. As you can see here in this box, okay, right here, okay, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi, his spirit, right next to Yoda, and right next to Anakin. But through a mail away, you could not find this in stores. It came in this little box, which I wrote Obi, by the way. I have the entire Cantina Band collection. They came in the same boxes, so that I know which is which. This is the Obi box, but inside, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi's spirit. That came only by mail. And I believe came out in 1997 or 98, right around the same time period. You had to mail away for this, okay? Snail mail. Do it that way, like I did with the old Star Wars coins in the past. So this is a 2-parter, where I have this 3-pack, and then I have this guy, of which I had to mail away. And you can tell it is different, okay? All right, look at the 2 Obi-Wans next to each other. See how they're different? I'm doing really horrible by lining these up. I try to think in reverse in real time. Anyway, yes, this is it. And as you can see, this is still mint in box. And what they did is a little kind of coming attraction. You can see coming summer 99, episode 1. So, yes. And again, long before episode 2 was shot, possibly before cast, definitely before we saw the, what's his name? The guy who plays Anakin in the latter 2 movies. You can shout me a comment on that one. I'm trying to think of it. Hayden Christensen. So, long before Hayden Christensen replaced him digitally, don't like it, we had, of course, this. The original Obi-Wan and the original Anakin Skywalker and Yoda, who all kind of gave Luke a good job, boy. Thanks for saving the galaxy. When I was a kid, one Christmas, and we actually have this on VHS tape, and I really want to find that tape because recently I've been capturing our family home movies, and I have all my old videotapes from our family, from my great papa who was recording back in the 80s, and I have these, and I actually have a YouTube channel just for our family. I bring all that up because one Christmas I get a lunchbox. It's probably Star Wars. And I open, I'm like excited. I have my lunchbox, right? And I can't believe I'm getting lunchboxes for Christmas. But again, I also got cool stuff then. Like I'd probably get my chicken walker, my ATST, right? Well, it's right here. So I'd get cool stuff, but I'd also get, it was Star Wars. It was still really cool. So one of those things, this is the Empire Strikes Back metal lunchbox. Now check it out. On the back, completely different scene. Luke learning to use the Force with Yoda. Then in the cockpit, Han on his Tauntaun. Vader. And nothing really on the bottom. Oh, but a cool Hoth scene on the top, made by Thermos. Now, I'd open up my lunchbox. Here's the punchline. I'd open it up and go, what? No thermos? I had a really bad list back then. What? No thermos? Yeah, so I would open it up and there would not be a thermos in here. So this must have been a gift from my mom, because guess what? She wrote a note. When adult Eric got this from a gift for his mom, he goes, what? Again, no thermos? Which is truly ironic, given that it's literally made by the Thermos company. You can't include a thermos. Now, most of these did come with one. You remember those big, thick, chunky plastic thermoses? It would literally take up half. It would take up half of the space inside here. But I guess in the other half, you do your chips, your sandwich, whatever you're doing for lunch. But yeah, this is an original Empire Strikes Back lunchbox. Inside this very lunchbox, I found a surprise. When I was taking this out of storage, inside, I found my original Star Wars books. The novelization. How cool, right? I used to actually read these. You can tell they're worn. Of course, these suckers are old. But yes, these are the novelizations. Now, the Star Wars one has pictures on the inside, which is a nice feature, giving you pictures from the movie. And here's Empire Strikes Back. Let's see, any pictures in here? No. Yeah, so, okay, Return of the Jedi has pictures. So, again, the novel of Return of the Jedi. We should double our efforts, he says to Vader. In here we have Salacious Crumb, Jabba the Hutt, C-3PO. We have the fight over the Sarlacc pit. Wow, the pages are coming out. General Akbar, Leia and Luke on Endor. The face-off with the Imperial troops and the Ewoks. And then finally the victory celebration after they blew up the Death Star. So yes, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars. But not to be overdone. This is more the adult fare. I also have children's storybooks. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. These I read a lot. They have full pictures inside here with the story of the movie. This one's Star Wars, of course. Storybook. This is Empire Strikes Back. What a great cover, right? Man, talk about, George Lucas directed the first movie, right? But not the second and third. He got other directors. In that, I don't bring that up to say that he couldn't have done this, but those scenes on Cloud City, those scenes, right? Over the carbonite freezing chamber with the cool blue lighting and all the fog coming up from the machinery below and the lit stairs on which Luke and Vader have their first lightsaber duel. So beautifully shot and lit and set design. Just such an iconic, beautiful scene. Of course, we have the chase. Always on the run. Always on the run. There we go. The first time we see Boba Fett, of course, Empire Strikes Back. And on the back cover, we have the dynamic duo. And then finally, one of the most iconic pictures from Star Wars, right? Luke just being a BA with his lightsaber on the sail barge over the Sarlacc pit. And then they take down Boba Fett, of course. And then, of course, Vader comes up to meet the Emperor on the Death Star. I have backs of the cards here. You can see there's a Rebel Commando, and there was a sticker on it back then where you could mail away with the proofs of purchase. And I actually did that for the Emperor. I'm trying to find one here. But on the back of the cards, this is how we identified them. You can see how, this is 79. Okay, this is actually a good one. See how it says collect all 79? Okay, that's 79. But here we go. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And on here, this is a 77. You can see at the time, I circled the ones that I had. Yeah, I'm just counting my collection. So that's my handwriting, my circles from back in the day. That was a 77, and then I believe I have, yes, right here. This is a 65 card. And off of this is Darth Vader, okay? And for that Anakin offer, you can see the hole right there. Well, there you go. That's where I sent away the proof of purchase. All right, it wasn't done online. We actually had to put it in an envelope, lick the envelope, put a stamp on it, send it away, and hope and pray that they're going to send that special figure. That's how I got my Emperor figure. So these lines, they kept going, right? And the collection grew over time, this original vintage series. All right, so this is Darth Vader from 1977. You can see it comes with a vinyl cape. And underneath, you can see, of course, there's this Vader in his suit. On his right arm, it has a telescoping red lightsaber that comes out. Very cool figure. I actually have 3 of these original Vader figures. And then this is the card on which it comes. Now, this is probably one of my later ones, but this is the 1977 model. That's not the card for it. It's for one of my other figures. But yeah, Darth Vader, very cool. Very, you know, you can't have Star Wars without Vader, of course. So, yeah, there you go, guys. Darth Vader, 1977. Really cool stuff. And if you guys have Star Wars figures and you're curious about which one they have when they came out, on the back of the legs, right? And let me get one that's doesn't have a vinyl cape that I have to peel back. On the back of the legs, right up there, up close. You may not be able to focus it, but normally on the back of the legs is where you have the date. It'll say where it's made. A lot of times it says Hong Kong, 1977, and then the different lines vary. With, like, sometimes there's different spacing between the words and the date, and a lot of times it'll have Lucasfilm Limited, LFT on there. Lucasfilm Limited. That would be LFL, wouldn't it? All right, so anyway, yeah, this is Darth Vader, again, with a telescoping light saber, and then this is one with and without his cape or his cloak. Growing up, so many of us wanted to be Luke Skywalker, and we identified with him so much. He is the quintessential hero's journey, a farm boy who rises to greatness and is guided by an old wizard. And, you know, in that hero's journey Luke goes on, but finally getting closer to truly becoming a Jedi. In 1983, Jedi Luke comes out. And he has this is the cloth cloak. And then this is Luke. And then the picture behind me, that is a more modern lightsaber. I had, and I probably still do, I just can't find it at this very moment. He comes with a small, it's about this long. It's solid, like lime, kind of neon green. Even the handle is green. It's not the best design. The ones they came out with later, like for Power of the Force, much cooler lightsabers. Now, speaking of that, this is the Power of the Force version. And as you can see, of course, the original one comes with a cloth cloak. And the Power of the Force, Luke Skywalker, comes with kind of a vinyl or plastic cloak. And of course, here's that scene on top of Jabba's sail barge. It has information about Luke on the back. So again, here's the difference between the two. Jedi Luke Skywalker versus... And you can tell that the modern version has a much more refined face and a slightly smaller head. This one's kind of more bulbous, doesn't have as much detail, but it still looks like him. It still looks like Mark Hamill. But in 1995, there was a complete reissue, updates, new figures. The Star Wars line was back and in full force. I have the Millennium Falcon. I have an X-Wing. I have a TIE Fighter up here. And what else do I have? I have many different ships from like the 90s era hanging from the ceiling of this room, and I'll be showing you those. But in 1995, this is Dagobah Luke. See that it has a regular picture there? Okay? I bring that up because I'm going to show you an alternate in a moment. Comes with a blue lightsaber and a blaster. And on the back, of course, you can see some of the 1995 series right there. Also, in 1996, they came out with Shadows of the Empire. This was a comic book series by Dark Horse, and it was a video game for the Nintendo 64, and I own that video game. This is a really cool Luke. But there's another one where he comes with a red lightsaber. He's kind of like, looks like a Sith kind of thing going on. You can see on the back, there's Dash Rendar, and he was the main character. So Luke Skywalker had a life beyond Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. His story continued with books and comic books and video games. And one of those is from the Dark Horse comics. This is Luke Skywalker. And on the back, it says Luke learns the Emperor's darkest secrets. And as you can see, this is Luke Skywalker, looking kind of Sithy, with a red lightsaber. So obviously he learned some pretty bad stuff, and it comes with a blaster as well. This is part of the expanded universe, and what they call a 3D play scene there is, this is actually going to be folded out. I don't want to do that, of course, into a playset. Right? Give you a playset to use your action figure on. So this is Luke Skywalker. Very cool figure. I am really happy to have this one. And as you can see, that time frame, right? This would be like 97, 98 in that time frame where we had the green stripe, which matched the Power of the Force line that I showed you in episode 1. So yeah, the Luke Skywalker Expanded Universe, red lightsaber, super cool figure. Dark Horse had a comic book, and it was called Shadows of the Empire. Okay? An actual comic book, a Star Wars comic book. From that sprung new characters. New characters that did not exist, of course, in the original movies. One of which is Prince Xizor. Xizor, this came out in like 1996, 97. And with the energy blade shields. You see on the back. He's an Underlord of the Black Sun affiliation, the Black Sun, Prince Xizor. Pretty cool stuff. Anyway, from Shadows of the Empire, and as a lot of you may know, there is a Shadows of the Empire video game as well for the Nintendo 64. I still own it. I'm going to show it to you in another episode with my Nintendo 64. But as you can see right here, see Dash Rendar? Okay, right next to that Luke. That was the star of the video game. So yes, from the comic book, there are many different characters and toys, and so for this episode, I'm showing you this one, Prince Xizor, and I'll show you more. Many Yodas. Let me try again. Many Yodas. I'm trying to do a Yoda accent. Many Yodas I do have. Why did I even attempt that? All right, guys, this is Yoda. I have 5 Yodas to show you. 95, 98, 80, 95, 98, and 2001. Okay, let's start with the oldest first. These are both from 1980. 2 different versions. As you can see, this one comes complete and is complete. I don't have, of course, the box for him, but I do have a card back somewhere. But yes, he has his cane, the snake, his little utility belt, his cloth cloak. Okay. Of course, the holes that the little hexagon at the bottom that I always have. And so yeah, there's another one from 1980 with the red kind of brown eyes and a different kind of lighter skin tone. And I don't have the full getup for this one. But yeah, these are vintage 1980 original that came out with Empire Strikes Back Yoda. In comparison, this one came out in 1995. Comes also with a cane, of course, 1980, 1995 for the Power of the Force. It has the backpack, so you can put it on Luke, of course. This is Yoda from 95. 3 years later, this is 1998. Okay? They're all about the same size. Looks like a lot more detail in their wrinkles and face here, okay? A little attempt at some real looking hair and back, okay? This one has paint and it has a plastic tunic, unlike the original cloth tunic. Once again, in comparison, 95, and this is the 98. Very similar, okay? Very similar. And then, fast forward to 98 versus 2001 for, of course, Episode 1. This is the Yoda that we saw sitting in the chair in the Jedi Council, and there's a lot of scenes there in Episode 1 and you know, in the prequels, okay? Yoda, you can see his little blue chair here. And this one came out in 01. Of course, it comes with that ComTech chip that works with the reader. You can see it right here on the back, okay, along with other toys as well. So again, Yoda 2001, Yoda 1998. Lots of Yodas you have. And then, that was actually better. Yoda 1995. And then all the way back to Yoda, the original OG. The original Yoda from 1980. So, very cool. You know, this is the one figure that I picked up many, many years ago on eBay. Because as a kid, I lost 2, maybe 3 Yodas. Look how bloody big it is. All right, you're a kid. You're playing. You're outside playing wherever. You know, and sometimes I did. I played Endor and I played Hoth, but wherever I was playing, you know, doing different scenes from the original movies. If I took them outside, sometimes crap happened, or a friend comes over and steals one. Who knows? And then one time, let me digress, and I want to tell you the story. Elementary school. I'm in 5th or 6th grade. And my Star Wars collection at that point was quite large. All right? Got the B-Wing. I got the Skywalker. I've got the X-Wing. I've got the Imperial Shuttle. I have all these different things. Plus, at that point, I probably had 40 plus Star Wars figures, okay? From the original lines. And the librarian who did displays, okay, on top of the bookshelves, which lined our elementary school library, you know, that about 5-6 feet in the air. She would do different collections, you know, from people around town. She's like, why don't you bring your Star Wars collection in? And I did. And I don't know how many figures I lost along the way. Because on top of those shelves, okay, got all these bookshelves around the library. I lined up all my figures, okay? You know, I got a Jawa up there, got my Gamorrean Guards up there, and then who knows how much crap was stolen from me. I have no idea how much was taken from me. I know I had all my ships left over, but little things like this could easily be pocketed, and I think were. And I may have lost 3 to 6 figures. Well, let's call it 5. I lost about 5 figures from my library display. You know, again, we all make mistakes. So once again, Yoda, 1980. This is 98, 95 Yoda, and then 2001 Yoda. It is a really cool figure, and of course, I had to go to eBay and get one just to replace it. As an adult, I didn't feel complete without having a couple Yodas in my collection. Alright, so this is the Jabba the Hutt playset. It came with 2 figures. Jabba the Hutt, of course, and Salacious Crumb, you know, the guy that sits on the edge right there. And then he has his little thing with which he gets bugs and stuff and he drinks the juice. Yeah, this is Jabba. And when you turn his head, his tail moves. Okay? When you turn Jabba's head, his tail actually moves. And can you believe, back in the day, this is before CGI, this is before computer-aided, computers to, create things digitally, there were 6 to 7 puppeteers, if you will, inside the giant Jabba that you saw in Return of the Jedi. There were that many people controlling the tail and controlling the eyes and the arms and stuff. There are people actually inside this prosthetic, this giant puppet that was Jabba the Hutt, that of course sits, or lays, upon his throne. Now, this is a cool playset because it has a string that comes off here where you can put a ring around Luke's neck, but also these open up, okay, to kind of represent when Luke falls through the floor into the Rancor pit. And then down here below Jabba, You can see that there are cast moldings of lizards and bones and stuff like that, things that fell. And I've always thought that kind of represents the Rancor pit. It may not, but that's, as a kid, that's what I thought. So yes, Jabba sits upon his throne, and then this is Salacious Crown. Or whatever that is. Now, if you ever saw The Mandalorian, they are actually grilling these guys on a spit. You're actually cooking these guys on the streets of one of the alien worlds. But anyway, yeah, this is Jabba the Hutt. It's a really cool playset. And of course, with this, and I'm also going to be showing you Jedi Luke and Leia as Bosch, and I have Lando in his disguise. So yeah, this is a fantastic playset. Okay, if you want to recreate the Jabba scene from Return of the Jedi. In 1998, there's an expanded universe. This is General Thrawn. You saw him in the Ahsoka series, in the live-action version. But before that, it was in comics and other different places and different books, I think. But yeah, this is General Thrawn, 1998, from the expanded universe. And this packaging is a little bit thicker than usual, because it kind of folds out into a playset. You can see him standing on that. That's actually built into this. Of course, this is mint in package. I'm not going to set up that playset. Mentioned in episode 1 that the cards that the Star Wars figures came on had a proof of purchase that was right here. Okay? It says Kenner or Star Wars and a proof of purchase. You can cut that circle out and mail away for certain figures. One of those figures early on, before it was Anakin Skywalker, was the Emperor. This is the 1983 Emperor toy. It did come with a little cane. You can see him. Now, in Power of the Force, the slide edition, this is the Emperor. Kind of similar. Similar in look. Similar in size. Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. He has a slightly darker cloak. We can see through the plastic here. And then this cane is very similar to the cane that came with him. So yeah, this is the Emperor. On the back, you can see a picture from him from Return of the Jedi. Emperor Palpatine. So yeah, yes, this is the original one. And again, there was no internet with which I could send away, scan a QR code and go and get an Emperor toy, right? Not back then. You had to physically cut out a little circle proof of purchase right here. Put like 5 or 6 of those in an envelope, lick the envelope, put a stamp on it, send it away, and hope you got a figure. And I did. One day in the mail, the Emperor showed up. And what a great day that was. There was a faceless character that looked really cool because he had vibrant colors. They had vibrant colors. Return of the Jedi, on the Death Star, in the throne room, always around to protect the Emperor. And of course, I speak of the Emperor's Royal Guard. This is the original 1983 Emperor's Royal Guard. You can see his cloth, okay? A couple layers of cloth over its uniform. It has that kind of iconic, cool-looking mask. In contrast, this is a 1997 model, Power of the Force. Gone is the cloth, replaced by plastic. It has its staff with it. And I also have a staff. All these figures that I'm showing you on camera, I'm leaving their weapons and their staffs and all that kind of stuff aside. I'm just showing you the figures. That's why they're not here. As you can see, it's pictured behind me. But yeah, original one, 1983, Emperor's Royal Guard. And then, of course, the Power of the Force version with the gold label, as you can see on there. It looks like they're calling it a Force Pike. That's what its staff is called, a Force Pike. On the back, you can see a picture of the guards from Return of the Jedi. Picture from the movie. Looks like, yeah, they're coming off the Imperial Shuttle. Emperor Royal Guard. This is the clone Emperor Palpatine figure. So the idea that kind of sucked that they put in Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker wasn't even their idea. Now, I'm not calling the idea... I'm really digging a hole here, but I think a lot of you might agree with me. But yes, this is the clone Emperor I'm going to hold back on commentary now. For some reason, he has a blue lightsaber. Like the other expanded universes, this is a thicker package, which can then also fold out into a 3D set, if you will. Yes, the Clone Emperor figure. So it is kind of cool, though, to know that those storylines that we saw put into The Mandalorian, I mean, basically they did that because Rise of Skywalker had already been written. You know, Mandalorian takes place just a little while after Return of the Jedi. It's in that time frame. Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian, fast forward to Rise of Skywalker. So, of course, if in Rise of Skywalker, the Empire or the First Order is bringing back their big evil leader, right? Then, of course, it was an interesting idea to go, okay, now what steps are they taking along the way to come up with cloning? And how do you clone a powerful Sith or Jedi? How do you do that? So that I didn't mind that subplot. I found that interesting. I don't care for the retconning. And, you know, just, again, if you defeat evil, it's dead. And that is the victory. And that is the victory we deserve as an audience, and that Luke and Vader deserve as father and son, and as heroes and or villains of Return of the Jedi. So, again, this is a Clone Emperor. You know, I could have done all that without the extensive commentary and color on this, but I had to say something, because it does bother me. And I do love that moment in Return of the Jedi, where he does save his son, and he kills the evil, and at the end, he talks about his sister, meaning we see Anakin Skywalker. We see his face. And tell your sister, you were right. Tell your sister, you were right. It's such a beautiful moment. This is a carrying case. It has these little latches. You can open it up. It came with stickers, so you can custom label the different slots, for Vader and Leia and R2 and 3PO and so on. And then it comes... cool hint, the actual scope is a handle, but it's actually a pretty cool looking gun from the Star Wars universe. In the Expanded Universe series, this is Mara Jade. In her original box, blue lightsaber, has a blaster. Mara Jade. Of course, a character not found in the original Star Wars series. This one came out in 1998. And it has that fold down kind of 3D scene that you can make. Of course, I have not done that. I want to keep it in this package and not open it and not tear it all apart. But yeah, Mara Jade, part of the Expanded Universe. You know, I have to admit, I know they're not, quote, canon anymore. That was basically destroyed when Disney got the stuff. They had a big meeting, and J.J. Abrams... JJ and a bunch of people decided what would be canon and what would not. What would be the official Star Wars line. And at that point, to my knowledge, they scrapped it all. Back when that stuff, quote, did exist in canon. This is Mara Jade. From the comics and from Heir to the Empire novel. We all know what a Jawa is. The original Star Wars movie, 1977, 3PO, R2, rolling through the canyons in the depths of Tatooine Desert. And they're run upon by these little guys with these electromagnetic guns, which shocks the droids. You know, they pick up trash and they sell it, basically. They pick up whatever they can and they sell it. That's what they do. That's how Luke's uncle buys R2-D2 and C-3PO from the Jawas. This is an original Jawa. I used to have more of these. Again, like Yoda, kind of small. And I lost a couple along the way, but I do have the original 1977 Jawa. In contrast, this is a 1996 2-pack of Jawas. From the Power of the Force line. 2-pack of Jawas. You can see a scene from the movie on the back. This is what's cool about these figures. By the way, I showed you the 96. This is the 97 model. Slightly different than the 96 model. Okay? Slightly different color cloak. Here's the 97 model compared to the original 77 model. Okay? 20 years before this one, 97. This is what's cool. I do like this feature. On the top of their heads is a little, see that kind of rectangle? Watch this. When you put a light, their eyes glow, just like in the movie. So if you have it in sunlight or near a light source, the Jawa's eyes glow. Same with these. See their eyes glowing there? I find that's a pretty cool feature, right? Because it emulates and kind of shows us exactly what we saw in the movie. So again, 1977 Jawa, just this little guy, little arms. I believe he used to have a cloak with him. This is all I have left, but I'm really happy to still have this Jawa. In Jabba's palace, the first guys you met when that giant door comes up slowly to that front corridor, that passageway that takes you to Jabba, and Jedi Luke in his cloak, and he waves them off using the Force, right? I believe he may actually choke one of them. Of course, I'm speaking of the Gamorrean Guard. I have 3 of them. I wish I had 3 of other figures, but somehow I have 3 original 83 Gamorrean Guards. In contrast, this is a Gamorrean Guard from 1997. You can see that they changed the design some. Not a ton. Kind of slightly different color palette with his clothes there. Very similar otherwise. Darker armor on his shoulders and forearms. Okay. More protruded kind of pig-like face. And of course, that matches really well the 1983 photo from Return of the Jedi. Gamorrean Guard. Yes, these are the guys from Jabba's palace. You know, of my figures from the 90s, I have a lot of them, of course, mint in box. I've shown you a bunch of them. Why and how this one yellowed, that can happen, as you well know, a lot of you guys, that the plastic can yellow over time. I'm wondering if this was more exposed and more of an open box. I don't know. For many years, I kept rows and rows and rows and rows. I mean, I must have 150 from the 90s. Power of the Force line, stuff like that. I got a lot. And my kids through the years, they knew that there was an entire play store, an entire toy store in their attic. My little boys, they were both around the same age, both very young. And of course, me wanting to be super dad, I'd go up into the attic and I'd bring them down a figure and I'd bring them down another one, another one. And now I have a board of them and I'm slowly trying to incorporate. I kept all the backs and the plastic parts to them so I can put them back together someday. So I have a box of card backs, these, and loose figures zip ties to a board. I had so many mint in box at one time until I had kids. That's still worth it. I love my boys. They're awesome. So yes, Gamorrean Guard with the yellowed plastic. And luckily, most of my figures from this era, about 30 years ago, have not yellowed like this one. I'm going way too long about the yellow. So yes, 1983 original Gamorrean Guard. Next time, we're going to do a B-Wing from 1995, an X-Wing Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, and I have Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't done so, please hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified when those new episodes come out. For all of you who have subscribed, who've been with me for a couple of years now, and who have you just joined the family here at the Loudboy Experience, thank you. I really appreciate it, and there's a lot more to show you, so more episodes are coming, so stay tuned for those. Guys, as always, I am Eric, this is the Loudboy Experience, and may the Force be with you.